The lawyer's voice droned on about assets and distributions, while my sister Victoria sat across from me, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her Hermes bag with barely contained excitement. I stared at the cracked screen of Mom's ancient flip phone in my hands, my sole inheritance, and wondered if this was her final way of telling me I'd never been enough. The house, the investments, the jewelry, even Mom's cherished art collection, everything went to Victoria. Everything except this worthless piece of outdated technology that probably didn't even work anymore. But as I sat there, feeling the weight of 23 years of being the family disappointment, I had no idea that this battered phone held a message that would shatter every lie my family had built their perfect lives upon. The morning had started like any other terrible day in my life. Rain pelted against the windows of Hartley & Associates' law office, matching my mood perfectly. Victoria had insisted we arrive separately. She didn't want to be seen pulling up in the same car as me, not when she drove a pristine white Mercedes and I still took the bus. The receptionist had given me that look, the one I'd grown accustomed to over the years, the one that said she knew exactly which sister was the success story and which was the failure. If you're watching this and you've ever felt like the forgotten one, the one who never quite measured up no matter how hard you tried, then please stay with me. Because what I'm about to share isn't just my story. It's proof that sometimes the smallest, most unexpected things can reveal the biggest truths. And if this resonates with you, please take a moment to subscribe, because everyone deserves to know their real worth. My name is Emma Winters, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the other daughter, the one who wasn't pretty enough, smart enough, or ambitious enough. While Victoria graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Law, I struggled through community college. While she married Jonathan Blackwood III, yes, from those Blackwoods, I worked double shifts at a bookstore cafe, serving lattes to people who looked through me like I was invisible. Mom never said it outright, but I knew. Oh, I knew. Every Christmas photo, where Victoria stood in the center while I hovered at the edge. Every birthday dinner, where her achievements dominated the conversation, while my small victories were met with polite nods. Every family gathering where relatives would gush over Victoria's latest accomplishment before remembering to ask me, "And what about you, dear?" The reading of the will was supposed to be a formality. We all knew Victoria would get everything. She was the one who visited Mom every Sunday, who managed her medications with color-coded charts, who hired the best nurses money could buy. I was the one who sat with Mom during her chemo treatments, holding her hand while she slept, reading her favorite books aloud when the pain kept her awake, sneaking her forbidden chocolate when the doctors weren't looking. But those things don't show up in estate documents. Love doesn't have a dollar value attached to it. Mr. Hartley adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses and cleared his throat. To my daughter, Victoria Margaret Winters Blackwood, I leave my primary residence at 47 Rosewood Drive, valued at approximately $2.3 million. Victoria's lips curved into a satisfied smile. The contents of my investment portfolio, currently valued at $4.7 million. Her smile widened. My jewelry collection, including the Winters family heirloom pieces dating back to 1892. She actually sighed with contentment, as if she'd been holding her breath waiting for confirmation of what she already knew. To my daughter, Emma Rose Winters, Mr. Hartley continued, and I straightened in my uncomfortable chair. I leave my personal cellular phone along with all its contents. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria actually laughed. Not a cruel laugh exactly, but one filled with such pity that it might as well have been. "Oh, Emma," she said, reaching across the mahogany table to pat my hand. "Mom always was particular about her bequests. I'm sure she meant it as something sentimental. You know, all those photos she took of you when you were little." Mr. Hartley slid a small plastic bag across the table to me. Inside was Mom's phone, a flip phone from 2008 that she'd stubbornly refused to upgrade despite our attempts to bring her into the smartphone era. It was scratched, one corner was chipped, and the screen had a crack running diagonally across it. I took it with trembling hands, not from excitement, but from the sheer humiliation of it all. $7 million to Victoria. A broken phone to me. "There is one more matter," Mr. Hartley said, pulling out another document. "Mrs. Winters specified that Emma must be the one to go through and clear out her personal effects from the bedroom. Victoria is to have no involvement in this process." Victoria waved her hand dismissively. "Fine by me. I'm having the whole house renovated anyway. Whatever sentimental trinkets are in there, Emma can have them." She stood, smoothing down her designer dress. "Jonathan's waiting for me. We have reservations at Le Bernardin to celebrate. To honor Mom's memory." She glanced at me, and for a moment, I thought I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? But it was gone before I could be sure. "You can take your time with the bedroom, Em. I won't be moving in for at least a month while the contractors work." And just like that, she was gone, leaving me alone with Mr. Hartley and a broken phone that felt heavier than it should have in my hands. I didn't go to Mom's house right away. Instead, I went back to my studio apartment. Calling it a studio was generous. It was really just a converted garage, and sat on my threadbare couch, staring at the phone. Why this? Of all the things Mom could have left me, why this particular item? She knew I needed money. She knew I was struggling. Just last month, I'd had to choose between buying groceries and paying my electric bill. Victoria had posted photos from her vacation in Santorini that same week. I flipped open the phone, surprised when it actually turned on. The battery was at 47%. Someone must have charged it recently. The wallpaper was a photo of Victoria and me when we were children, before everything changed. Before Victoria discovered she was beautiful and I discovered I was not. Before academic achievements and social standings divided us into winner and loser. We were maybe 6 and 8, building a sandcastle at the beach, both of us covered in sand and grinning at the camera. I didn't remember that day, but I remembered feeling like that, happy, carefree, equal. The phone was basic, even by 2008 standards. It had a contacts list with only 12 numbers, a handful of blurry photos, and a text message inbox. I scrolled through the contacts. Victoria, me, Dr. Patterson, her oncologist, the pharmacy, a few relatives, nothing unusual. The photos were mostly of her garden, a few of Victoria at various events, one of me from last Christmas that I didn't know she'd taken. I was laughing at something, probably one of my own awkward jokes, and for once I didn't look like the family disappointment. I looked happy. Then I opened the text messages. Most were mundane. Appointment confirmations, brief exchanges with Victoria about dinner plans, a sweet message from me telling her I loved her. But at the very top of the list was a message marked "Draft Unsent," dated 3 days before she died. It was addressed to a number I didn't recognize, and when I opened it, my blood ran cold. "Marcus, I can't do this anymore. Emma deserves to know the truth. I'm dying, and I refuse to take this secret to my grave. If you won't tell her, I will. She has a right to know who her real father is and why you've paid Victoria to keep her away from the family all these years. The game is over." I read it again, then once more, certain I was misunderstanding something. Marcus? The only Marcus I knew was Marcus Rothschild, Mom's former employer from 25 years ago. She'd been his personal secretary before she married Dad, or the man I thought was my dad, William Winters, who died when I was 10. But that couldn't be right, could it? My hands shook as I scrolled through the phone's contacts again. There, a number simply saved as MR. I stared at it for a long moment before pressing call. It rang once, twice, 3 times before a deep voice answered. "Helen? Helen, is that you? My God, I thought the funeral was yesterday. They said you were gone." I hung up immediately, my heart pounding. It was him, Marcus Rothschild, the billionaire real estate mogul whose face graced the covers of business magazines, whose charitable foundation had its name on hospital wings and university buildings. The man who, according to this unsent text, was my father. But that wasn't even the most shocking part. Victoria had been paid to keep me away from the family? My own sister? The one who got everything? Who complained about having to babysit me at family functions, who always found excuses for why I couldn't join her and her friends, who told me I'd embarrass her if I showed up to her law school graduation. She'd been paid to do it. I needed answers, and I knew exactly where to find them. Mom's bedroom. The house felt different without her in it. Emptier, colder, despite the warm afternoon sun streaming through the windows. Victoria had already been through the main areas, marking things for the estate sale or for keeping. Yellow sticky notes with her perfect handwriting were everywhere. Keep, sell, donate, trash. Mom's entire life reduced to 4 categories. Her bedroom door was closed, and for a moment I stood outside it, unable to make myself turn the handle. The last time I'd been in there, she was still alive, propped up on pillows, her face gaunt, but her eyes still bright as I read to her from her favorite Jane Austen novel. "Emma," she'd said, interrupting me mid-sentence, "you know I love you, don't you? No matter what anyone says or does, you know that." I'd assured her I did, but now, standing outside her door with that cryptic text burning in my mind, I wondered what she'd really been trying to tell me. The room still smelled like her. Lavender and vanilla, with a hint of the peppermint tea she drank every evening. Her bed was neatly made. The hospice workers had seen to that, but her reading glasses still sat on the nightstand, along with a half-finished crossword puzzle. Everything looked normal, exactly as it always had, but I wasn't looking for normal anymore. I started with her dresser, carefully going through each drawer. Clothes, jewelry she hadn't deemed valuable enough for the safe deposit box, old photographs. In the bottom drawer, beneath carefully folded sweaters, I found a small wooden box I'd never seen before. It was locked, but the key was taped to the bottom. Inside were documents, legal documents, bank statements, and letters. So many letters. The first document was a paternity test from 24 years ago. Emma Rose Winters, father Marcus Alexander Rothschild, probability of paternity 99.9%. The room spun. I sat down hard on the bed, the document crumpling in my grip. It was true. The man I'd grown up calling Dad, whose funeral I'd attended 13 years ago, wasn't my biological father. But he must have known. He'd raised me, loved me, or had he? I thought back to my childhood, searching for signs I'd missed. He'd always been more distant with me than with Victoria, but I'd assumed it was because Victoria was older, easier to relate to. Now I wondered if it was because every time he looked at me, he saw evidence of my mother's betrayal. But no, the next document changed that narrative entirely. It was a legal agreement signed by William Winters, Helen Winters, and Marcus Rothschild. In exchange for William agreeing to raise me as his own and never revealing my true parentage, Marcus would pay them $50,000 a year until I turned 18. The payments would continue after that only if the child remains unaware of her true parentage and maintains no contact with the Rothschild family. I felt sick. I'd been bought and sold before I was even born, my entire life a carefully orchestrated lie. But there was more. The letters were between Mom and Marcus, spanning years. The earliest ones were love letters, passionate and desperate. Marcus had been married, unable to leave his wife without losing his company in a divorce. Mom had been young, naive, in love. Then came the pregnancy, the panic, the negotiations. William Winters had been a friend, someone who'd always loved Helen but whom she'd never seen romantically. He agreed to marry her, to raise me, in exchange for financial security and the woman he'd always wanted. But the letters didn't stop after my birth. They continued, growing more anguished over the years. Marcus wrote about seeing me from afar, at my high school graduation, at the bookstore where I worked. He'd been there, watching, but never approaching. He wrote about setting up a trust fund in my name, one that Victoria had somehow gained control of. He wrote about his legitimate children, 3 sons who knew nothing about me, and how he wished he could bring me into the fold, but couldn't risk the scandal. And then, the most recent letters, dated just months before Mom's diagnosis. Marcus's wife had died. He was free, finally, to acknowledge me. But by then, Victoria had gotten involved. The next document made my blood boil. It was a contract between Victoria and Marcus, signed 2 years ago. In exchange for $100,000 a year, she would manage my life to ensure I never discovered my connection to the Rothschild family. The contract detailed her methods, discouraging me from pursuing higher education. She'd convinced me I wasn't smart enough for a 4-year university, sabotaging my relationships. 3 boyfriends had suddenly lost interest after meeting her, keeping me in menial jobs. She'd actually called my employers to ensure I wasn't promoted, and most crucially, maintaining my belief that I was inferior to her in every way. There was an email printout attached to the contract, from Victoria to Marcus. Emma's self-esteem is sufficiently destroyed. She believes she's a failure, that she's lucky I even acknowledge her as a sister. She won't question why good things don't happen to her. She thinks she doesn't deserve them. As long as I keep reinforcing this narrative, she'll never look beyond her circumstances or question why her life is so different from mine. I ran to the bathroom and vomited, my body rejecting the truth as violently as my mind was. My own sister had been systematically destroying my life for money. Every cruel comment, every dismissive look, every moment she'd made me feel small and worthless. It had all been calculated, paid for, orchestrated. But why? Why would Marcus go to such lengths to keep me away? The answer was in the final set of documents, the ones that changed everything. Marcus Rothschild's will, not his current will, but a draft dated 6 months ago, before his wife's death. In it, he'd left his entire fortune, an estimated $8.7 billion, to his beloved daughter, Emma Rose Winters, whom I have wronged beyond measure. His 3 legitimate sons would receive generous trust funds, but the bulk of the estate, the company, everything that mattered, would go to me. To the daughter he'd abandoned, the one he'd watched from the shadows, the one whose life he'd allowed to be sabotaged rather than face scandal. But there was a handwritten note attached to it. Void if Emma discovers the truth before my death. Victoria has convinced me it would be cruel to upend her life now. She's built an identity around her struggles. To tell her the truth would be to destroy who she is. Victoria had convinced him. My sister had not only taken money to ruin my life, but had convinced my biological father that I was better off not knowing the truth, that I was too fragile, too established in my role as the family failure to handle the revelation. I sat on the bathroom floor, the documents spread around me, and laughed. It was a broken sound, edged with hysteria, but I couldn't stop. All those years of feeling inadequate, of wondering what was wrong with me, of accepting scraps while Victoria feasted, it had all been a lie. I wasn't a failure. I'd been sabotaged. I wasn't unloved. I'd been hidden. I wasn't worthless. I was worth so much that people had spent millions to keep me from knowing it. The phone, Mom's phone, buzzed in my pocket. A reminder I must have missed earlier. Check the cloud backup. I didn't even know flip phones had cloud backups, but then again, this was 2008 technology. I found Mom's laptop in her closet, old but functional. The password was saved, and there it was, a backup of her phone from the day before she died. But there was so much more than what was on the physical phone. There were recordings, dozens of them. The first one made me gasp. It was Victoria's voice, talking to someone. Jonathan, her husband. The stupid little mouse actually thanked me for letting her come to Christmas dinner. Can you believe it? She thanked me, like she's some charity case I'm taking pity on. God, if she only knew I'm getting paid 6 figures to keep her down, she'd lose her mind. But that's the beauty of it. I've made her so grateful for scraps that she'd never even think to question why she doesn't. Get more. Jonathan's voice, uncomfortable. Don't you feel bad? She's your sister. Half-sister, Victoria corrected sharply. And no, I don't feel bad. Do you know what it was like growing up with everyone whispering about Mom's affair? About how Emma looked nothing like Dad? I was the legitimate one, but she got all the sympathy when Dad died. Poor little Emma, losing her father so young. Nobody cared that I lost him too. Nobody cared that I had to watch him look at her and see another man. So no, I don't feel bad. I'm getting what I deserve. Money and status. And she's getting what she deserves. Nothing. The next recording was Marcus and Mom, just a week before she died. She was crying. "You have to tell her, Marcus. I'm dying. I can't leave this world knowing she thinks she's worthless." "Victoria says it would destroy her," Marcus replied, his voice heavy. "She's built a life, humble as it is, to find out it's all been a lie." "It is all a lie!" Mom's voice was stronger than I'd heard it in months. "My daughter thinks she's a failure because your money has paid for her to be treated like one. You've stolen her life from her, Marcus. You've stolen her choices, her opportunities, her self-worth, and for what? To protect your reputation? Your legitimate sons who you don't even like?" "Helen, please." "No, I'm done with please. I'm done with protecting everyone except Emma. I've been a coward, but I won't die a coward. Either you tell her or I will. And if you try to stop me, I've made sure she'll find out anyway. I've documented everything. Every payment, every contract, every single thing Victoria has done. It's all here, waiting for Emma to find it." "Where? Helen, where is it?" But the recording cut off. Mom had hidden it all in plain sight, in the one thing she knew Victoria would never want, her old, worthless phone. But it wasn't worthless. It was evidence. It was proof. It was my vindication. I spent the next 3 hours going through everything. There were bank records showing the payments from Marcus to Victoria, screenshots of text messages between Victoria and Marcus discussing my management, photos of me that Marcus had taken from afar, at my college graduation, at my job, even at Mom's funeral yesterday, standing in the back while Victoria played the grieving daughter in the front row. And then I found the video. Mom had recorded it the day before she died, when Victoria thought she was sleeping. Victoria was on the phone with Marcus. "She needs to be at the will reading, but don't worry. I've made sure she'll get nothing significant. Mom's leaving her some sentimental garbage, an old phone or something. I convinced Mom it would mean more to Emma than money, given how simple her needs are." She laughed, that same pitying laugh from earlier today. "The best part is, Emma will thank me for getting everything. She'll actually thank me for inheriting what should have been partially hers. She's so well trained now, she doesn't even think she deserves more." "And the Rothschild estate?" Marcus's voice through the phone. "I've already got the lawyers working on it. If you die before telling her, which you will because you're a coward, the will can be contested. Your sons will fight it. And in the confusion, I'll make sure Emma never even knows she was named. I'll get my finder's fee, 10% as we agreed, and Emma will keep serving coffee to people like us, thinking it's the best she can do." "This has gone too far, Victoria." "No, it hasn't gone far enough. Do you have any idea what it's been like, being the daughter of the woman who had an affair with Marcus Rothschild? Everyone knew. Everyone whispered. But Emma? Perfect little Emma with her big eyes and sweet smile. Nobody blamed her. She was the innocent victim. Well, she's not innocent. She's the reason my father could barely look at my mother. She's the reason my family was a lie. And I'm going to make sure she pays for that for the rest of her miserable little life." The video ended with Mom's whispered voice. "Emma, baby, if you're watching this, know that I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry. But also know that you are not who they've made you believe you are. You are Marcus Rothschild's daughter. You are worth billions. And you are loved. So loved. Even if I was too weak to show it the way I should have. Don't let Victoria win. Please, baby, don't let her win." I sat in my mother's bedroom until the sun set, until the shadows grew long and the house grew cold. I had everything I needed to destroy Victoria, to claim my birthright, to change my life forever. But I also had a choice to make. Did I want to be Marcus Rothschild's daughter? Did I want his billions, his name, his legacy? Or did I want something else, something more? I thought thought about the bookstore where I worked, the customers who knew me by name, the elderly woman who came in every Tuesday for her romance novels and always brought me homemade cookies. I thought about my tiny apartment, where I'd taught myself to paint because I couldn't afford classes, where I'd written poetry no one would ever read, where I'd been myself, or at least who I thought was myself. But then I thought about all the things I'd wanted to do but couldn't afford. The art classes I'd dreamed of taking, the novel I wanted to write but couldn't because I was too exhausted from working double shifts. The volunteer work I wanted to do but couldn't because I needed every penny just to survive. Victoria hadn't just stolen my money, she'd stolen my potential. I picked up Mom's phone and scrolled to Marcus's number again. This time, when he answered, I spoke. "This is Emma," I said simply. The silence was deafening. Then a sharp intake of breath. "Emma? Emma Winters? Emma Rothschild, apparently. Oh God, oh my God. Helen told you? But the funeral was yesterday, or... She's dead," I said flatly. "But she left me everything I need to know, including the fact that you've been paying my sister to destroy my life." "Emma, please, let me explain." "No, you're going to listen. I have recordings, documents, contracts, everything. I have proof of what you and Victoria have done to me, and I have a decision to make about what to do with it." "What do you want?" His voice was resigned, defeated. "Money, the company, name it. I want you to suffer the way I've suffered. I want Victoria to lose everything the way she made me believe I deserved nothing, but mostly, I want to look you both in the eyes when everyone knows the truth. Emma, there's a Rothschild Foundation gala tomorrow night. Victoria will be there with Jonathan. She's been bragging about scoring the invitation for weeks. You'll announce me as your daughter, publicly, and you'll explain exactly why no one's heard of me before. That's social suicide. My sons, the company board, your sons who you were going to disinherit for me, the company board who would be very interested to know their CEO has been embezzling funds to cover up an affair and an illegitimate child. That's social suicide? He was quiet for a long moment. "You're more like me than I thought." "God, I hope not. I'll see you tomorrow night, Father." I hung up before he could respond. My next call was to Mr. Hartley. "I need you to do something for me," I said. "I need you to ensure Victoria can't access any of the inherited assets until after tomorrow night." "I'm afraid I don't understand, Miss Winters." "You will. Just trust me. And Mr. Hartley, you might want to have another look at your client list. I have a feeling the Rothschild estate is about to need new representation." The night of the gala, I stood outside the Fairmont Hotel in the only decent dress I owned, a simple black sheath I'd bought secondhand for Mom's funeral. I could see Victoria through the windows, resplendent in what was probably a $10,000 gown, laughing with people who had no idea they were socializing with a fraud. Marcus found me before I could enter. He looked older than his photos, worn down by secrets and guilt. "Emma," he said, reaching out as if to touch me, then pulling back. "You look just like your mother when she was young." "Don't," I said sharply. "Don't you dare try to be sentimental now. You had 23 years to be my father. You chose to be my puppeteer instead." "I was trying to protect you." "From what? From wealth? From opportunity? From knowing I was wanted?" "From me," he said quietly. "From the kind of man who would do what I did. Victoria was right about one thing. I am a coward. But I'm here now. Only because I forced you to be." We entered together, and the room fell silent. Marcus Rothschild, who never attended social events with anyone but his sons, was walking in with a young woman no one recognized. I saw Victoria's face across the room, watched the champagne glass slip from her fingers and shatter on the marble floor. Marcus walked to the microphone at the front of the room. His voice was steady, but I could see his hands shaking. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement to make. This is Emma Rothschild, my daughter." The gasps were audible. Victoria's face had gone white. Jonathan was looking at her with confusion and growing suspicion. Marcus continued, 23 years ago, I had an affair with my secretary, Helen Winters. Emma was the result. Instead of taking responsibility, I paid Helen's husband to raise Emma as his own. I've hidden her existence, denied her birthright, and worse, I've actively sabotaged her life to keep her from discovering the truth. The room erupted in whispers, but Marcus raised his hand. But the person who bears the most responsibility, besides myself, is Victoria Winters Blackwood, my daughter's own half-sister, who took payment, substantial payment, to systematically destroy Emma's self-worth, her opportunities, and her future. Victoria was pushing through the crowd, her face twisted with rage. You can't prove any of this. This is slander. I'll sue. I held up Mom's phone. Actually, I can prove all of it. Every payment, every contract, every recorded conversation where you laughed about how pathetic I was, how easy it was to keep me down. It's all here, Victoria. All of it. You little... She lunged at me, but Jonathan caught her arm. Is it true? He asked her, his voice deadly quiet. Did you take money to hurt your own sister? Victoria's silence was answer enough. Jonathan let go of her arm as if she were contaminated. We're done, he said simply, and walked away. The rest of the night was a blur. Reporters appeared as if from nowhere. Marcus's sons arrived, furious and threatening lawsuits. Victoria was escorted out by security, screaming that I'd ruined everything, that I was nothing, that I'd always be nothing. But for the first time in my life, I knew she was wrong. The aftermath was swift and brutal, for them. Victoria's law firm conducted an internal investigation after the recordings went public. Turns out, taking bribes to psychologically torture a family member isn't great for a legal career. She was disbarred within a month. Jonathan filed for divorce and, thanks to a prenup she'd foolishly signed in her arrogance, she got nothing. The house Mom had left her, tied up in legal battles as Marcus's legitimate sons contested the will, arguing that Victoria had exerted undue influence over a dying woman. Marcus's reputation was destroyed. The board forced him to step down as CEO. His sons, who'd always competed for his approval, wanted nothing to do with him once they learned about me and the lengths he'd gone to hide me. The fortune he'd built became a battleground for lawyers and family members who suddenly appeared from nowhere, claiming their peace. But here's the thing about being raised with nothing, about being told you're worthless for so long you believe it. When you suddenly have power, you see it differently than those who've always had it. I didn't want Marcus's billions. I didn't want his company or his name or his legacy of lies. What I wanted was simpler and somehow more valuable. I wanted my life back. The life I should have had if people hadn't been paid to steal it from me. So I made a deal. I would sign away any claim to the Rothschild fortune in exchange for three things. First, Victoria's inheritance from Mom would go to me. Poetic justice, since she'd stolen so much more than that over the years. Second, Marcus would pay for me to go to art school, the real kind, the kind I'd dreamed about before Victoria convinced me I wasn't talented enough. And third, he would establish a foundation for young women who'd been gaslit and manipulated by their families, with me as the director. He agreed to everything. What choice did he have? The last time I saw Victoria was at the lawyer's office, signing over Mom's house to me. She looked different, smaller somehow, diminished. Her designer clothes had been replaced with off-the-rack business wear. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide the shadows under her eyes. I hope you're happy, she said bitterly. You've destroyed everything. No, I corrected her. I've revealed everything. There's a difference. You think you've won, but you haven't. You'll always be the illegitimate daughter, the mistake, the one who doesn't really belong. I thought about that for a moment. She was right in a way. I would always be the illegitimate daughter, but I was also the survivor, the truth teller, the one who refused to stay in the box they'd built for me. You know what, Victoria? You're right. I don't belong in your world of lies and manipulation and cruelty disguised as love. But that's not a failure on my part. It's a freedom. She left without another word, and I never saw her again. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she moved to another state, started over, got a job as a paralegal. Sometimes I wonder if she ever thinks about what she did to me, if she ever feels remorse. But then I remember that recording of her laughing about how well trained I was, and I realize it doesn't matter. Her remorse or lack thereof doesn't define my worth. Not anymore. I'm in art school now. Real art school. The kind with famous professors and competitive admissions and students who stay up all night debating the meaning of a single brushstroke. My classmates don't know about Marcus Rothschild or the billions I walked away from. They know me as Emma, the woman who started late but paints like she's making up for lost time. The bookstore where I used to work hired me back part-time, not because I need the money, but because I missed it. I missed the regular customers, the smell of coffee and old paper, the quiet moments between rushes when I could sneak a few pages of whatever novel had just come in. My manager, who'd always been kind to me, pulled me aside my first day back. "We heard about everything," she said gently. "About your real father, about what your sister did. I just want you to know that you were never nothing to us. You were always Emma, and Emma was always enough." I cried in the break room for 20 minutes after that. Mom's house, my house now, has become a haven. I turned Victoria's old room into an art studio, which feels like poetic justice. The walls that once held her academic awards and photos from her perfect life now hold my paintings, explosions of color and emotion that would have horrified her need for control and perfection. I kept Mom's room exactly as it was, though. Sometimes I sit on her bed and talk to her, tell her about my day, my classes, my small victories that aren't so small anymore. I found more recordings on that phone, ones I hadn't listened to initially. Messages Mom had left for herself, like audio diary entries. In one, she talked about the day I was born. "She's perfect," Mom's younger voice said, full of wonder. 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes, and these enormous eyes that seemed to see right through me. Marcus came to the hospital. William let him. Can you believe it? He held her for exactly 3 minutes before William made him leave. But in those 3 minutes, I saw it. The love, the regret, the weight of what we'd done. He said she looked like a fighter. I said she'd have to be. And I was. I am. The Rothschild Foundation for Family Abuse Survivors. That's what we called it because Marcus didn't get to run from his name, even if I did, has helped dozens of young women in its first year. Women whose families convinced them they were worthless, stupid, ugly, undeserving. Women whose siblings were paid or coerced or manipulated into becoming their tormentors. Women who, like me, believed the lies for so long that the truth felt like a foreign language. We provide therapy, legal support, educational scholarships, and most importantly, validation. We tell them what I wish someone had told me. You are not crazy. You are not worthless. You are not the problem. And you deserve so much more than crumbs. Marcus tried to be part of it at first, showing up to board meetings, trying to have input on decisions. I shut that down quickly. This is my foundation, I told him. My vision, my rules. You can fund it, consider it 23 years of back child support, but you don't get a say in how I help the women you taught me to be. He accepted that too. He's accepted everything I've demanded, as if his compliance now could somehow erase decades of abandonment. It can't, of course, but his money can help others, and that's enough. I've been in therapy for a year now, trying to untangle the web of lies that shaped me. My therapist, Dr. Kim, is endlessly patient with my trust issues, my imposter syndrome, my deeply ingrained belief that good things are mistakes that will be corrected. You were gaslit for 23 years, she reminded me during our last session. You can't expect to heal from that overnight. I know, I said, but sometimes I still hear Victoria's voice in my head, telling me I'm nothing. Sometimes I still feel like that girl at the will reading, holding a broken phone while my sister got millions. But you're not that girl anymore, are you? I thought about it. That girl wouldn't have confronted Marcus. That girl wouldn't have stood up in front of hundreds of people and claimed her truth. That girl wouldn't have walked away from billions because she knew her worth wasn't measured in dollars. No, I said finally. I'm not her anymore, but I'm grateful to her in a way. She survived long enough for me to become who I am now. Dr. Kim smiled. That's a beautiful way to honor your past self. Last week I got a letter. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Victoria's perfect, precise cursive that she'd practiced for hours as a child, because presentation matters, Emma. Not that you'd understand. The letter was short. Emma, I've been in therapy too. My therapist says I should apologize, but I don't know how. How do you apologize for stealing someone's life? How do you apologize for being paid to destroy your own sister? I could say I was young, that I was angry about Mom's affair, that I was jealous of how easily love seemed to come to you despite everything. But those are excuses, not apologies. The truth is, I hated you. I hated you for existing, for being proof of Mom's betrayal, for being the reason Dad looked at Mom with such pain. But mostly, I hated you for being genuinely good, despite everything I did to break you. Every time I knocked you down, you got back up with a smile. Every cruelty I delivered, you met with kindness. It infuriated me. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I see it now, what I did, what I took from you, what I became. And I'm sorry. That's not enough. It will never be enough. But it's true. I hope your life is everything mine never was. Authentic, honest, and full of the love you always deserved. Victoria. I read the letter 3 times before folding it carefully and placing it in the wooden box where I keep important things. Not because I forgive her. I'm not there yet, might never be there, but because it's part of my story, the whole messy, complicated, painful truth of it. Sometimes I run into people from Victoria's old life. They look at me with a mixture of pity and fascination, like I'm some exotic creature they can't quite classify. The illegitimate daughter who brought down the Winters Blackwood dynasty. The girl who walked away from billions. The nobody who became somebody by refusing to be anybody but herself. Last month, Jonathan approached me at a coffee shop. He looked older, tired, but somehow more genuine than he'd ever looked standing next to Victoria at those society events. I wanted to apologize, he said without preamble. I knew something was off about how Victoria treated you. I saw the cruelty, the manipulation. I should have said something. You didn't know about the money, I pointed out. No, but I knew about the meanness, and I ignored it because it was easier, because Victoria was my wife and you were just there, background noise in our perfect life. He paused, seeming to gather himself. I'm getting remarried next month, to someone real this time, someone who doesn't perform kindness like it's a party trick. And I wanted to thank you, oddly enough. If you hadn't exposed everything, I'd still be living that lie. I didn't do it for you, I said honestly. I know. That's what makes it even more powerful. You did it for you. That takes incredible courage. Courage. It's funny how people keep using that word about me now. For 23 years, I was told I was weak, pathetic, cowardly, too scared to take risks, too timid to stand up for myself, too insignificant to matter. But maybe courage isn't about being fearless. Maybe it's about being terrified and doing it anyway. Maybe it's about holding a broken phone in a lawyer's office and choosing to believe you deserve more than the nothing they've assigned you. The art show is next month, my first solo exhibition. The theme is inheritance, and every piece tells a part of this story. There's a painting of a broken phone with light streaming from its cracks, a portrait of 2 sisters where one is solid and the other is made of smoke, a series of self-portraits showing the evolution from shadow to substance. Marcus asked if he could come. I told him no. This isn't about him or for him. This is mine. But I did invite someone else, Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman from the bookstore, who brought me cookies every Tuesday. She doesn't know the whole story, just that I discovered some family secrets and came into some money, but she's been one of the few constants in my life. Real kindness, not the performed kind, not the paid kind. "I always knew you were special, Emma," she told me last week, patting my hand with her soft, wrinkled one. "You have the light. Some people, they try to dim it, but the light always finds a way through." She was right. The light does find a way through cracks and broken phones, through lies decades in the making, through the suffocating weight of other people's greed and jealousy and fear. It finds a way. I still work at the bookstore 1 day a week. I still live modestly, though I did upgrade from the garage studio to a small house near campus. I still sometimes catch myself apologizing for taking up space, making myself smaller, accepting less than I deserve. Old habits carved deep by years of conditioning don't disappear overnight. But I'm learning. Learning that my worth isn't determined by my bank account or my bloodline or my sister's opinion. Learning that love isn't supposed to come with conditions and contracts. Learning that the girl who got mom's old phone while her sister got millions wasn't actually the one who lost. Because Victoria got money, but it was never really hers. It was mom's, earned through a lifetime of work and careful saving. What I got was the truth, and the truth, as painful as it was, set me free. The phone still works. I charge it sometimes and scroll through those old messages, not out of pain, but as a reminder. A reminder that things aren't always what they seem, that the smallest inheritance can be the most valuable, that sometimes the very thing meant to bury you becomes the key to your resurrection. Tomorrow marks exactly 1 year since the will reading. Victoria will probably spend it somewhere far from here, rebuilding a life built on something other than lies. Marcus will probably spend it in his empty mansion, surrounded by the fortune that cost him everything that mattered. His sons will probably spend it fighting over their father's legacy, not realizing that legacy is already poison. But me? I'll spend it painting, creating something from nothing, which is what I've been doing all along, even when I didn't know it. I'll spend it surrounded by people who know me as Emma, not the illegitimate daughter, not the betrayed sister, not the girl who walked away from billions, just Emma, the girl who serves excellent coffee, who paints with too much orange because it makes her happy, who reads poetry at open mic nights with a voice that shakes but doesn't stop. That's who I really am, who I've always been, underneath the lies and manipulation and systematic destruction of my self-worth. And it turns out that's more than enough. It's everything. My phone, my actual phone, not mom's, buzzes with a text from a classmate about tomorrow's assignment. Normal, mundane, beautifully ordinary. No secrets, no conspiracies, no life-altering revelations. Just life, moving forward the way it always does, one small moment at a time. But I keep mom's phone. It sits on my nightstand, that cracked flip phone that everyone thought was worthless. Sometimes I look at it and think about how the most valuable things often come disguised as junk. How the people who seem to have nothing might be hiding everything. How a mother's love can be encoded in the strangest ways, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. The last voicemail on the phone is from Mom, left the morning she died while I was rushing to the hospital. I've listened to it so many times I have it memorized, but I play it anyway when I need to remember that I was loved, truly loved, despite all the lies surrounding my life. Emma, my darling girl. Her voice is weak but clear. I know you're on your way, but in case I don't get to say this in person, you are the best thing I ever did. Not the easiest thing, not the simplest thing, but the best thing. The truth is, coming, baby. It's going to hurt before it heals, but you're strong enough for it. You always have been. Don't let anyone, not Victoria, not Marcus, not even me, define your worth. You define it. You always have. I love you beyond words, beyond mistakes, beyond time. Find the truth, and then find yourself. She died 2 hours after leaving that message, holding my hand while Victoria stood at the foot of the bed, texting about funeral arrangements. At the time, I thought Mom's final words were just the ramblings of a dying woman. "The truth sets you free," she'd whispered, squeezing my fingers with what little strength remained. I'd nodded, not understanding. thinking she was talking about heaven or confession or any of the things dying people talk about. But she wasn't talking about her truth. She was talking about mine. And she was right. The truth did set me free. Not free from struggle or pain or the long journey of healing ahead, but free from the prison of other people's lies, free from the cage of manufactured worthlessness, free from the story they wrote for me before I could hold a pen. Now I write my own story, one brushstroke, one poem, one genuine moment at a time. It's not a perfect story. It's messy and complicated, and sometimes I still feel like that girl holding a broken phone while the world celebrates someone else. But it's mine. Completely, authentically, unapologetically mine. And that's an inheritance worth more than all the money in the world. The exhibition opens in 3 weeks. I've titled it Everything from Nothing, a play on how I built my life from what everyone thought was worthless, and how Victoria's everything turned into nothing when the truth came out. The centerpiece is a massive canvas, 8 feet tall, showing a woman emerging from a shattered phone screen, light pouring from every crack, illuminating hidden truths in the darkness around her. Marcus sent a check to sponsor the exhibition. I sent it back. He sent it again with a note. Not for forgiveness. For other women like you who need to know they're not alone. I cashed it that time, but donated it directly to the foundation. His money can help, but it doesn't get to buy him proximity to my success. The local news wants to do a story about the exhibition, about me, about everything that happened. Local woman discovers billionaire father walks away from fortune would be their headline, I'm sure. I declined. That's not my story. That's their version of my story, the sensational, clickbait version that misses the entire point. My story isn't about discovering a billionaire father. It's about discovering that I had value all along. It's not about walking away from a fortune. It's about walking toward a life that's actually mine. It's not about Victoria's betrayal or Marcus's cowardice or Mom's secrets. It's about surviving all of that and still choosing to believe in goodness, in art, in the possibility of a better tomorrow. Dr. Kim asked me last week what I would tell my younger self if I could go back to that day in the lawyer's office, holding that phone, feeling like nothing. I'd tell her that the phone isn't broken, I said after thinking about it. It's cracked, but it works, just like her. Cracked from all the pressure, all the lies, all the deliberate cruelty, but still functional, still valuable, still capable of revealing truths that change everything. And what would you tell Victoria's younger self? That stopped me. I'd never thought about Victoria as young, as vulnerable, as someone who might have been different if things had been different. I'd tell her that someone else's existence isn't a threat to hers, that there was enough love for both of us if she'd just stopped keeping score. That being legitimate doesn't mean anything if you build your legitimacy on someone else's destruction. Do you think she knows that now? I think she's learning. We're all learning. The truth about truth is that it's never as clean as we want it to be. Victoria was a villain in my story, but she was also a victim in her own. A child who watched her father struggle with her mother's betrayal, who grew up in the shadow of a secret that everyone knew but no one acknowledged. It doesn't excuse what she did, but it explains it. Marcus was the absent father who abandoned me, but he was also a man trapped by his own choices, watching from afar as his daughter grew up without him. Mom was the keeper of secrets, who let me suffer rather than risk the scandal, but she was also a woman who loved me enough to ensure the truth would eventually find me. And me? I was the victim who became the victor, but I was also complicit in my own diminishment for years, accepting crumbs because I'd been taught that was all I deserved. We all played our parts in this tragedy until I decided to stop performing and start living. The bookstore is quiet today. Rain patters against the windows, and the smell of old paper mingles with fresh coffee from the shop next door. A young woman, maybe 19 or 20, approaches the counter with a stack of self-help books. Her eyes are red-rimmed, her shoulders hunched in that particular way of someone who's been told they're not enough for so long, they've started to believe it. These are good choices, I tell her, ringing up the books. But can I recommend one more? I pull a slim volume from behind the counter, a book about recognizing gaslighting and emotional manipulation. She looks at the cover, then at me, and something in her expression shifts. Is it that obvious? She asks quietly. Only to someone who's been there, I reply. The book is on me, and if you ever need to talk, I'm here most Saturdays. She takes the book with trembling hands, and I see myself a year ago, lost, confused, certain that the problem was me, not them. I want to tell her everything, to shortcut her journey to self-discovery, but I know that's not how it works. We all have to find our own truth in our own time. All I can do is leave breadcrumbs, the way Mom did for me. After she leaves, I check Mom's phone again. It's become a ritual, even though I've been through everything 100 times. But today, I noticed something new. In the Notes app, buried among grocery lists and appointment reminders, is a single line. Emma, you were never the mistake. You were the correction. I don't know when she wrote it or if she meant for me to find it. But I choose to believe it was intentional. One more breadcrumb on the trail to truth. Because that's what mothers do. They leave us inheritances. Sometimes it's money or property or jewelry. Sometimes it's recipes or photographs or stories. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it's the truth hidden in a broken phone, waiting for you to be brave enough to flip it open and see what's inside. The rain has stopped, and sun streams through the bookstore windows, casting rainbow prisms through the water droplets on the glass. I think about Victoria, probably at her paralegal job, filing documents for someone else's life. I think about Marcus, probably in a board meeting for a company he no longer runs, irrelevant in rooms where he once commanded attention. I think about Mom, gone but somehow still present in every truth that continues to unfold. And I think about me, Emma Rose Winters, not Rothschild, because I choose my own name now. The girl who inherited a broken phone and found a broken family inside it. The woman who walked away from billions because she understood that some prices are too high to pay, even for security. The artist who paints light streaming through cracks because that's how the truth gets in. My shift ends in an hour. After that, I have a painting class to teach at the community center, one of the Foundation's programs for young women reclaiming their narratives. Tonight's lesson is about perspective, how the same subject can look completely different depending on where you stand. It feels appropriate. One of my students, Maria, reminds me of myself. She apologizes constantly, makes herself small, accepts praise like it's a mistake that will be corrected. Last week, she painted a self-portrait that was all shadows, no light. "Where's your light source?" I asked her. "I couldn't find one," she admitted. "Then you make one," I told her. "That's what artists do. We don't just paint what is, we paint what could be." Tonight I'll teach her about chiaroscuro, the dramatic interplay of light and dark, how the shadows make the light more powerful, how contrast creates depth, how sometimes the darkest parts of a painting are what make the bright parts sing. It's a lesson about art, but it's also a lesson about life. About how our darkest moments, standing in a lawyer's office feeling worthless, discovering our whole life has been orchestrated by other people's greed, can become the contrast that makes our light shine brighter. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. For a moment, my heart races. Old habits, old fears. But it's just a potential buyer for one of my paintings, interested in the piece about the two sisters. They want to know the story behind it. "It's about truth and lies," I text back. "About how sometimes the people who should protect us are the ones who harm us most. But it's also about survival, about finding light in the darkest places, about choosing to grow despite attempts to keep you small." They buy the painting without haggling over the price. It's more money than I used to make in 3 months at the bookstore, but it doesn't feel like victory anymore. It just feels like fair compensation for the work, for the pain that went into creating it, for the truth it tells. As I'm closing up the bookstore, Mrs. Chen shuffles in with a tin of cookies, as she does every Saturday now. "For the artist," she says with a smile. "You need sweetness to balance all that truth you're painting." I hug her. This woman who saw me when I couldn't see myself, who brought me cookies when I couldn't afford lunch, who never needed to know about billions or betrayals to understand that I was worthy of kindness. "Mrs. Chen," I say impulsively, "would you like to be my guest of honor at the exhibition opening?" Her eyes widen. "But I don't know anything about art." "You know about kindness," I tell her. "And that's what all my art is really about, the search for genuine kindness in a world full of performance." She agrees, and I realize this is what building a real life looks like. Not grand gestures or dramatic confrontations, but small moments of connection with people who see you for who you really are, not who they've paid you to be or who they need you to be for their own agenda. As I lock up the bookstore, I see my reflection in the glass door. I look different than I did a year ago. Not physically. I still have the same face that marks me as Marcus's daughter, the same eyes that reminded Mom of her choices. But there's something else now. A straightness to my spine, a directness to my gaze. I look like someone who knows her own worth, who's stopped apologizing for existing, who's learned that inheritance isn't about what you're given, but about what you choose to keep. Tomorrow, I'll paint. I'll teach. I'll help another woman recognize the gaslighting that's kept her small. I'll live my actual life, not the performance Victoria scripted for me. And maybe, probably, I'll check Mom's phone again, looking for more breadcrumbs, more truth, more evidence that I was loved even when that love was buried under lies. But tonight, I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to Marcus's house. Not to forgive him, I'm not there yet. Not to reconcile, that may never happen. But to return something. It's a photo I found in Mom's things, tucked inside a book of poetry. It's of Marcus holding me in the hospital, those 3 minutes Mom mentioned in her recording. He's looking at me with such raw love and regret that it hurts to see it. But it's his truth, his moment, and he should have it. I ring the doorbell of the mansion I could have inherited. Would have inherited if I'd played the game differently. Marcus answers personally. His staff has long since abandoned him. "Emma?" He looks older, smaller, like Victoria did that last day. "What are you—" I hand him the photo without words. He takes it with shaking hands, stares at it like it's a window to a different timeline, one where he made better choices. "Thank you," he whispers. "It doesn't change anything," I tell him. "But everyone deserves to remember the moments when they could have been better, even if they chose not to be." I leave before he can respond, before this becomes something it's not. A reconciliation, a movie moment, a neat resolution to a messy story. Real life doesn't work that way. Real healing doesn't happen in dramatic scenes, but in small, daily choices to be better than you were yesterday. The drive home takes me past the Fairmont Hotel, where a year ago I stood with Marcus and destroyed Victoria's carefully constructed world. There's another gala tonight, there always is, and through the windows I can see the same people, wearing the same types of gowns, playing the same games of power and perception. But I'm not pressed against the glass anymore, desperate to get in. I'm driving past, heading home to my small house with its art studio and its walls covered in truth. To my life that's mine in a way Victoria's never was, even with all her millions. My phone rings. It's one of the women from the foundation, crying because she's just confronted her family about years of emotional abuse and they've cut her off. "I have nothing," she sobs. "They took everything." "No," I tell her firmly, pulling over to give her my full attention. "They took what was theirs, but you still have what's yours. Your truth, your future, your right to build something better from the ashes of their lies. And that's not nothing, that's everything." We talk for an hour. I share parts of my story, the parts that might help her see that rock bottom can be a foundation if you're willing to build on it. By the end, she's not crying anymore. She's planning, thinking, imagining a future that doesn't depend on people who would rather destroy her than see her succeed. This is my real inheritance, not money or property or even truth, but the ability to help others find their way out of the darkness, because I've walked that path myself. It's worth more than Marcus's billions, more than Victoria's millions, more than any amount of money could ever be. When I finally get home, there's a package on my doorstep. No return address, but I recognize the handwriting again. Victoria. Inside is our mother's wedding ring, not the valuable one that went into the estate, but the simple band she wore after Dad died, the one she never took off even after she knew it represented a lie. There's a note. She would have wanted you to have this. It was real, even if nothing else was. V. I slipped the ring onto my finger. It fits perfectly. This symbol of a complicated love, a difficult choice, a woman who did her best with an impossible situation. It's not valuable in any monetary sense, but it's precious in the way that truth is precious. Complicated, sometimes painful, but ultimately liberating. My exhibition opens in 2 weeks. My paintings are ready, each one a window into a different aspect of this journey. The story of the broken phone that held everything, the portrait of sisters divided by more than blood, the self-portraits showing transformation from shadow to light, the abstract pieces that capture what betrayal feels like, what discovery feels like, what choosing yourself feels like when everyone else has chosen against you. But the final piece, the one I just finished today, is different. It's a painting of forgiveness. Not the neat, clean forgiveness that movies sell us, but the messy, complicated, incomplete forgiveness that's all most of us can manage. It shows hands letting go of threads that have become chains, releasing not for the benefit of those who hurt us, but for our own freedom. It's not about Victoria or Marcus or even Mom. It's about me choosing to loosen my grip on anger because holding it so tightly is hurting my hands. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive them. I don't know if they deserve forgiveness or if deserving even matters when it comes to letting go. But I know that carrying this anger, this resentment, this fury at what was stolen from me, it's just another kind of prison. And I've been in enough prisons. I deserve to be free. The phone, Mom's phone, my inheritance, my salvation, sits in a place of honor in my studio. I've had offers from collectors who want to buy it as part of the exhibition, people fascinated by the idea of a worthless object that held priceless truth. But it's not for sale. Some things are too valuable to put a price on, too personal to become someone else's conversation piece. Besides, I still check it sometimes. Not for new revelations, I found them all, but as a reminder that truth can hide in the most unexpected places, that what looks worthless might be invaluable, that sometimes the smallest inheritance is actually the biggest gift, and that love, real love, complicated love, imperfect love, finds a way to reach us even through layers of lies, even through years of manipulation, even through death itself. It might come disguised as a broken phone or an unsent text or a mother's last words, but it comes. It always comes, if we're brave enough to look for it, to recognize it, to flip open what seems broken and discover that it still works. It still connects us. It still has something vital to say. Tomorrow marks 1 year since I read that unsent text that changed everything. Victoria is rebuilding her life somewhere far from here. Marcus is learning to live with his choices in his empty mansion. His sons are fighting over money that's poisoned by its history. And me? I'm painting, teaching, helping other women find their truth, living a life that's smaller than what I could have had, but bigger than what they tried to leave me with. It's not a fairy tale ending. There's no prince, no sudden reversal that makes everything perfect, no moment where the pain of those 23 years simply disappears. There's just this, a woman who learned her worth not from what she was given, but from what she survived. A daughter who found her mother's love hidden in the last place anyone would look. A sister who chose freedom over revenge, truth over billions, herself over everyone else's version of who she should be. The last text on Mom's phone, the one she never sent, the one that started all of this, still sits there in the drafts folder. Sometimes I think about sending it, completing what she started, letting Marcus receive those words from her number like a ghost reaching through the veil. But I don't, because the message has already been delivered, just not in the way she planned. The truth did come out. I did learn who my real father is and what Victoria did. The game did end, and I won. Not because I got the money or the recognition or the revenge, but because I got myself. I got my life. I got the chance to build something real from the ashes of everyone else's lies. That's my inheritance. That's my mother's true gift. Not the phone itself, but what it represented. The truth that sets you free, even when that freedom looks nothing like you imagined it would. End. Thank you for listening to my story. If this story moved you, and if you believe that everyone deserves to have their true worth seen, please likes this video and shares it with someone who needs to hear this message. Comment below and tell me, what was the moment in the story that resonated with you the most? And if you want more powerful stories about finding your strength and overcoming the odds, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's next.